In America, their drinking age is 21. And now I'm not trying to say that we should have a drinking age of 21 in New Zealand. But what I'm trying to say is that that has brought about the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. And in America, I don't know how many of you have been there before, but the drinking age, while everyone in America who's under the age of 21, has a massive grievance with that. I mean, obviously, as you'd imagine, what it's bred is this community that is like nothing we have in New Zealand. An openness, people, I'll get to it. So anyway, imagine if you couldn't drink until you were 21. For most of you, us, that's the entire time you're in university. You can't go to a bar. What are you going to do with your lives? For most of you, like, oh my God, what do I do if I can't go to Courtney Place? What do I do if I can't go out? What if I can't go out to puppies? What am I going to do with my time? In New Zealand, we have a terrible, terrible, terrible attitude to alcohol. I'm sure most people are aware of that here. We're so dominated by this one silly sport which permanently permeates every aspect of our society. We're seeing that alcohol is the only thing that apparently brings us together and and makes us be friends with others. It's the only thing that mates. Even the alcohol advisor, whatever they're called, that board who comes up with these ad campaigns with the beersies, about it's cool, I'm still your friend, I'm just saying no to the beersies. It's just like, even our ads that are trying to de-glamorize drinking are still glamorizing drinking. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about to stop you drinking. I mean, Christ, I run a bar. Anyway, so what I'm here to say is that we should be more like America. In America, the kids needed something to do. Everyone there, 18, 19, 20, they need something to do. So what they did is they took the power back. Like that scene in The Simpsons where Itchy and Scratchy is no longer allowed to be violent. So all the kids just they stop watching TV and they switch it off and they go outside and they rub their eyes and they realize that there's actually a whole world out there and they start interacting with each other and they start engaging with life. What's happened in America is that all these kids said, come to our houses. We don't need to go to bars, come to our homes. There's this little town in the state of Washington called Olympia. And one night I was in there, this is to illustrate a point, one night I was in there, just in the area surrounding where I was staying. I went to 6 different people's houses that night who had a range of events. From one person was having a Nettle Fest pre-organising meeting where they were working out all these things they could make with nettle wine, nettle rugs, nettle scarves. I went to a poetry reading in another person's house. I went to see 3 punk bands in a basement of another person's house. I went to another person's house and we just sat around and watched a couple of hippies play acoustic guitars, and so on and so on. And this happens all throughout America. I'm not just talking about tiny little super left-wing liberal towns like Olympia, but right through the ultra-conservative Midwest. You arrive at big, monolithic type, unreasonably large American homes with, Republican banners on the lawns. But, there's people in there who they're welcoming you into their home. People aren't scared of letting you into their home in America. I've been to so many strangers' houses, I can't even begin to explain. And it's anything in the world. And this is all I'm trying to encourage people here today, is to start thinking about creating community. To stop the current culture in this country is to let everybody else provide your entertainment, is to go out to do, what do we do this weekend? Oh, we'll just go to town. That's what you do. You go to town on the weekend, It's I'm so sick of hearing people just, let's go to town. It's no man, bring the community to you. One of my favorite evenings of my entire life, and this is so, I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyway, so I come from a music background, so obviously when I'm going to America or other countries, I like to focus on going to a lot of music events, lots of parties in people's houses, a lot of, whatever. But I've been to so many other events in people's houses, and I'm not just talking houses. If you're in Europe, right, throw out the conventional idea of what a bar is like. Throw out, bars don't even really exist in Europe. You've got your bars, but no one likes going to them because there's so many other options. You know, you go to parties on airfields, you go to parties in bunkers, you go to parties in caves, you go to parties in boats. You know, people just go, hey, look, stick up a couple of flyers on a lamppost, let's go to this park, let's go to this forest, everyone bring some food, let's have a get together. In the States, all these people who are young just come up with a name for their house. So you'll give your house a venue name, you know, like call it the Hunter Lounge or whatever. And you know, you'll create a Facebook page for that or MySpace or whatever, and you'll just start doing things. And it's just that simple, you know. Like anyone in this room tonight could just go home tonight, take a look at their house and go, what do I like doing? You know, do I like traveling? Do I like reading? Should I just invite some people around? We'll just do some science experiments, just do some maths equations. You know, it really doesn't matter, whatever. It's about letting the public into your house and not being scared of opening your heart and your community to like letting people in and meeting people. And I'd gotten ahead of myself, and I was getting back to that point, and I've forgotten how I got ahead of myself. So I'm just going to keep going until I remember where I was. So anyway, we need to, that's where I was getting. Sydney. If you're in here, if you're a student, which I assume most of you are students, many of you maybe live in like some crappy halls of residence or like some really crap flats where you're like, you know, your walls are shared with other people right next to you, and you're like thinking, I don't want anyone in my place. My neighbors suck. Everyone around me sucks. I hate this entire community around me. All right. One of the greatest nights in my life was in Sydney, and this was maybe like 10 years ago. And there used to be this thing. There was this block of rundown council flats, Scody apartments on the outskirts of town. And for one night each month, at least 10 of those flats in there would each throw on an event. The only thing you knew about it is when you turned up, is you'd get a flyer and you'd get the numbers of the different units. So, and all night you'd just be traversing all these different stairwells, and you'd hear people going, oh man, have you been to 201 yet? Oh, what's going on at 86? And you know, you'd just travel around these steps, just like popping into these little flats, and you'd walk into one flat and there's just like 3 people sitting cross-legged on the floor, like discussing film, you know, and you'd be like, okay, I'm out of here. But then you'd cruise into another room and there's just like a massive party happening. And the excitement of, it's something that I've tried to do with many of my events over many years, is just by not telling people what's going to happen. For me, the excitement of not knowing, of that like arriving at someone's house, arriving at any event, and just like, you know, having an idea that the people there are going to have a similar philosophy and outlook to me, but just being able to walk in on something and discover something is the most amazing experience. There was a time I was in Arcata, this tiny little town that's in North California, and I was meant to be doing a show with some bands at a house that night, but we got there and we were just like tired, and we were just like, oh, we can't be bothered doing this, and so we just decided, oh, can we just hang out and have a party instead? So they invited some friends around, and then we were like, oh, let's just start walking around and see what's going on around the neighborhood. So we just started walking around the streets, and like, you know, it's a student town, so it's like most of the places houses are students. We just started like going into houses. And we're just like looking for when stuff's going on. We're like looking lights in houses and go, oh, there's a bunch of people there, and we just cruise in. And it's like, and that's fine. It's totally all good. It's like, imagine that in New Zealand. Like, imagine just seeing a bunch of kids just walking around the neighborhood, just popping into random people's houses. It's like, you know, we're so scared of community here, and it's, you know, and maybe it's to do with the drinking age. But anyway, so that night in Arcata particularly, so we'd been in like 3 or 4 different people's houses, and we ended up wandering into we walked into the city because we wanted to get some pizza, and we walked down an alleyway, and there was like a group of like 8 or 10 kids that had just got a projector and a little generator, and we're just screening a movie up against the back wall of like a petrol station. So we sat down there and we hung out there for about an hour watching a movie, and then cruised back to the house again, and just again popped into like 2 or 3 different people's houses. It's like, it's time to take the power back. You know what? You want to take the power away from people like me who run bars. Rather than thinking, let's go into town, start thinking about how we can bring town to us, you know. And it's it's anything. Everybody has an interest. If you don't have an interest, it's time to start thinking about what your interests are. But I mean, never be scared of the public. This silly thing in New Zealand is that the people who do throw on events that are outside of the regular bar world seem to think that they need to run these events similar to bars. Oh, no one's going to turn up till like 10 or 11 or 12, We're going to get noise control because everyone's going to be making a racket. It's going to be like all these crazy people. It's going to get crashed. It's just going to be all this, so that scares them and puts them off doing stuff. When in reality, you just start small by your friends and your little community of friends, and you start early. You do something at 6 o'clock, 6:30, 7, because if people are coming around to your house, they don't have to preload at home. They don't need to sit around at home and have dinner and actually do no one actually likes going to town. That's the whole point. The whole thing, and what I've noticed by running a bar, no one wants to be there. It's like the whole point is just like they want to be there for the least amount of time as possible. It's just like they'll spend all the time with their friends, getting drunk, having a really good time, having dinner, actually having a good time before they get to the bar. Then they get to the bar, and as soon as they're not having an awesome time, they are out of there. It's like, man, the amount of people I've just seen come in, and they'll just be there, and I'm just like going, oh my God. There's like a group of 15 people come in, and I know if they stay, it's like $500 in my pocket. And I'm just like, oh my God. And it's like, but it's not going off right now. It's not going off. What am I going to do? Like the DJ, it's like, man, play a better song. And then like those 15 people are just like, nah, this isn't real. We're right here. And I'm just like, I mean, people don't want to be out. All you want to be is at home in a nice environment. You want to be surrounded by good people, cool people. You want to be having a good time. You don't want to be paying stupid prices for drinks. You just want to be in control of what you're doing. You want to be in control of the environment that you're in. And so why don't we do that? What is stopping us from doing that? I'm hoping that, if anything, from today, people can just go home and, put me out of work, basically. Just go home and and talk to your friends and go, hey, look, let's do something. Who has the least shit house, and that we won't be totally embarrassed of having like maybe another dozen people around. Build that little community. Start small. It'll work out being a great thing, and take the power away from I hate having a bar. I hate other bars. I hate the liquor industry's dominance of entertainment in this country. The whole reason I ran a bar was to work out a way of ending bars for good, And I mean, I think it's important, the fact that bands in this country, let's get to very briefly, I'll just talk about music. Music is just associated with playing in bars. It's like bands, liquor. It's like, how do you actually separate the two? It's like many bands don't want people to get drunk while they're watching them, but it's like, what are your options? It's like, basically in this country, if you want to see live music, you need to go to a pub. And it's like, when you're in a pub, you kind of have to drink. I purposely don't try to sell people booze in my bar, but it's like, I can't also let people bring stuff in because that's against the law, and I got to toe the line. But I mean, like, isn't it awesome to go somewhere where you can do whatever you want, where you can just bring a water bottle and just just drink some water throughout the night without feeling pressure of having to buy $10 mixed drinks or $9, $15 craft beers. I just need to get started about craft beers. What the hell is going on? Seriously, like these people paying this much for beer? It's like ridiculous. Like seriously, whatever. I'll sell it to you, but man. Anyways, so yeah, so I'll wrap things up, and I'm just hoping that we can be more like America, because I think America gets a bad rap, but I think for the people who have gone there, for the people who have met the community, for the people who have met the people, the day I'll be happy is the day I can just walk down the street, 5 houses, turn left, just open the door and walk into someone's house and just sit down in the lounge and start watching TV and just start chatting to them, And I think we're a long way from that. So let's get started today. All right, thank you.